welcome to the 67th edition of CITV. I hope you're enjoying your summer and that you are fit and well. Firstly, I want to tell you that I am making no predictions on when we are going to get the site approval for the townhomes in Delray Beach from the City Planning and Zoning departments. All I will say is that on July the 27th, the SPRAB committee are meeting to review for the third time our revised application for this crucial permit. Those who watch this news update are familiar with what has happened before, and I am hopeful of a positive outcome at this next SPRAB meeting. We have done everything possible for a positive outcome, so we will have to wait and see. I'm hoping August will be a joyous month. This introduction was filmed on July the 8th, a few days before I depart these shores for a vacation in Europe. And as I've said in the first segment, which you're just about to see, that I shall be keeping regular contact with my team here in Florida and also updating you on events as they unfold. As with the previous two episodes, this CITV episode has morphed into a vlog style presentation rather than the traditional news video update that you have come to expect from us over the years. It seems to be working. The feedback has been very positive and investors and the interested seem to understand what is going on with the townhomes and what we're trying to do at every turn to make our project in Delray Beach a success. I want to remind everybody that we're not a one-trick pony. If you have been following us from the very beginning, you will know that we are used to having 4 or 5 projects on the go at any time. Still, at this time, there are very few what I call deals around, and the conservative nature of our company means that we are only looking for what we consider home runs. Here at Centennial Investments, we are not risk takers. We are insanely protective of our investors' money, and as Centennial Investments arm TSC always has significant skin in any game, you can see why we always tread carefully. 20 years and no disasters, and that's how we like it. Nevertheless, we are looking hard every day, and a few possible deals are starting to creep out of the woodwork. And when we find one that we feel is sensible and suitable and meets our criteria, you will be the first to know. Anyway, that all being said, the first segment of CITV was filmed on July the 6th, and this is what's coming up next. Well, here we are in the early part of July. I didn't want to make an update until the dust had settled and we knew exactly what the next steps would be. There is a lot of information to impart to you in this segment. As we say in the UK, pin back your ears. Firstly, after the last CITV episode, Lisa Hammer, our arborist, very kindly reached out to me and said that everyone, including myself, is confused with the tree mitigation measurements. Based on the information I was given initially by the city, which was in written form, my interpretation of it was wrong. A caliper inch is not a circumference measurement, but a diameter, which is a much reduced figure. In my defence, nobody dissuaded me or advised me that my basic calculation was wrong, so I carried on in ignorance with this notion of measurement and cost in my head. Simply put, a caliper inch is a measurement from one side of the circumference to another at the central point. Lisa said that she believes the 2 remaining trunks, which are known as leaders, from her calculations and notes, are 28 inches in diameter in total. Lisa went on to say that if we move the tree as planned and the tree dies, we could still pay a mitigation fee to the city. Now, if memory serves me correctly, it's between $7,000 to $10,000 to move this tree, so this will be something definitely to consider. Whatever we decide, we'll leave the application as is with the SPRAB committee. The last thing we want to do is make any alterations and confuse the committee, causing more delays. Hopefully, we are better off asking for some form of variance after we get approval. Speaking with Shane Ames of Ames International Architecture today on the telephone, he said he would find out this week the exact cost of the mitigation should we go that route. Adrian Grandison, our lead architect, informed me on the same call with Shane Ames that he has tried numerous times to reach out to Rachel Falcone, the Planning and Zoning Committee member at Delray Beach Planning Department, by email and telephone without success. Ms Falcone said she would look into helping us get our demolition permit approved before site approval, so we could move on with the demolishing of the house on the land and prepare some groundwork. You may remember from last month's CITV, I doubted that she would be that proactive, and unfortunately it seems that so far I've been proven right. Finally, you may have remembered that Jae-Yoon Kim, the Delray Beach City landscape planner, insisted that we have a maintenance agreement signed and recorded at the city before getting site approval. This did seem ridiculous. It was a ridiculous request, as who would build a $5 million development and not maintain the landscaping? It just makes no sense. I did say in the last episode that we were going to submit revised plans and comments to the city without this maintenance plan in place, because we wanted to make sure that we made the 27th of July SPRAB committee meeting, especially as every landscape maintenance company that we approached wanted to see the development finished before they would quote, let alone issue a contract. However, our general contractor, Alan Parrott at Tester Construction, put us in contact with Bob Glynn, the owner of Delray Garden Centre. Bob immediately and without any guarantee of work produced an agreement to maintain the landscaping at 408 South East 2nd Street to help us satisfy Miss Kim's requirements. Although it is true to say at last month's meeting that this agreement could now be done later. I can't thank Bob enough for his effort and willingness to help us out, which shall be rewarded in the fullness of time. Thankfully, I shall be heading off on vacation this coming Sunday, but this will not stop me from speaking regularly to our team in Florida here, or recording updates. Who knows, I may even throw in a bit of scenery for you, who knows. Yep, that's right, Rachel Falcone, the Delray Beach planner who is going to help us with our site review plan with Delray Beach City Planning Department, dropped our file on her desk, or so it feels, and left us completely in the shit. How did I find out? Well, I received this heartwarming email from Amy Alvarez, who is the principal planner of current planning, and who told me matter-of-factly in an email that, as I know, Rachel Falcone has left Delray Beach City Planning Department. No, I didn't. And that she is now in charge of the final review of the Class 5 site review plan, 408 South East 2nd Street, aka the Townhomes project. She, having taken over this file, would like to know where the school capacity letter from the Delray Beach School District is, and if we have a traffic statement yet. More about the school capacity letter and the traffic statement in a moment. Worse, she is going to try, and I emphasise try, to get us on the August 24th SPRAB meeting schedule, which is just dandy as we were all set for the July 27th SPRAB meeting. If I hadn't been documenting and sharing with the world this whole situation and the sequence of events that keep presenting themselves, no one would believe this. I immediately contacted Shane Ames of Ames International Architecture yesterday, Friday, July the 15th. I asked him to please intervene by going to the city on Monday, reaching out to Miss Alvarez, explaining that we have been on this odyssey since September 2021, furnish her with all the facts, including the fact that the city unbelievably ghosted us for almost 3 months, and could she please help get us back on track. Matthew and Danielle, our project managers, have been fully briefed and will aid Shane and Adrian in their quest to resolve this in our favour next week, but there are no guarantees. Briefly, let me explain about SCAD. Government departments just love their acronyms. This one standing for School Capacity Availability Determination. On our first submittal for site approval, part of the documentation was to fill out oodles of paperwork to the local school district so they could determine from the number of houses we were going to develop, or are going to develop, if they have enough room to fit the resulting children into their school system. Once all the paperwork had been submitted, we were supposed to get back from the school district their approval by way of a school capacity approval letter. They were supposed to send this directly to the SPRAB committee and the agent for the developer. In this case, the original general contractor at the time, Kogan Construction. Either this didn't happen or both recipients mislaid this critical piece of documentation, which I may add should not hold up site approval. Confirmed by the newly departed Rachel Falcone. Interesting fact is the city has all the other documentations pertaining to the SCAD application, but mysteriously the letter of approval, which would be attached to this part of the file, is nowhere to be found. But don't worry, Miss Falcone was going to take care of all this, and well, now you know the story. In any event, Adrian Grandison, the project lead architect, has been speaking to the school district, paid the approval fee on behalf of Centennial Investments, and is now waiting for the approval letter to be sent, presumably by email, which the school district informed Adrian would only take a few days. I know these segments seem to be a bag of woe, but I can only report to you the facts in truth as they happen. Those of you that know me know I never sugarcoat, otherwise what's the whole point of this CITV if it's not to inform people accurately? One last thing, the traffic statement has been sitting with Miss Falcone for the past month, so when they open their eyes and find it, this will be one last thing on their list. Quite frankly, their incompetence is staggering. I shall update you sometime next week as to the progress, so goodbye from a 104-degree record-breaking hot summer's day here in London, although it's not so sunny here in my head. Hello from the fabulous town of Ornos on the island of Mykonos in Greece. The news doesn't get any better today, as last night I had protracted discussions with Adrian Grandison, Shane Ames and my team in Florida, and the update is not as good as I would have hoped. All the emails that I've been copied in from Amy Alvarez to Adrian Grandison have stated that Miss Alvarez is intransigent, and that we cannot make the July 27th SPRAB meeting as the incompetent Rachel Falcone initially scheduled for us. However, we did receive the SCAD approval letter from Delray Beach School District, which has been sent to Miss Alvarez. However, we are still missing a document from the county department that deals with traffic statements. There is a new initiative that John Haley of Haley Engineering, who prepared the traffic statement, was unaware of. There is now a requirement for an approval letter for his traffic statement from the county that deals with these traffic statements, which would then form part of the submittal package to the SPRAB committee. John Haley has told us that this is a swift process. Nevertheless, because we have not got this letter in hand and because Miss Alvarez is standing firm, stating that the department has 9 other submittals to consider on July 27th, coupled with staff shortages, that we just have to wait our turn, in this case now August 24th. Adrian Grandison protested that due to previous incompetence by the city, and in particular the now departed Rachel Falcone, we have been severely disadvantaged in the process, and that surely we should be given some form of dispensation. But no, as of today, this is not or is likely to be considered. Now, with 6 days to go until what was originally our allotted time slot, Adrian Grandison is hoping that we receive the approval letter regarding John Haley's traffic statement so that he can speed it on to Miss Alvarez and make one last appeal, leveraging somewhat of a working relationship with her from previous jobs. In all honesty, I feel incompetence, bureaucracy and intransigence will win the day. I have asked Adrian to ask Miss Alvarez once again to see if at least the city will give us approval for the demolition permit that has been sitting with the city for the past 10 months. We shall wait and see. Well, we are back in Florida and we have a mixed bag of news by way of an update. So, where to begin? Well, unfortunately, we did not, as I predicted, make the July 27th SPRAB meeting, which of course is very frustrating. We first submitted our site plans to the SPRAB committee way back in September 2021. Since that time, this department has been in disarray, with key personnel leaving and insufficient knowledgeable people filling the vacancies, and they also claim to be understaffed. Centennial Investments and every other Delray Beach developer has struggled with consistency and efficiency with the Delray Beach City Building Department, because the new employees of the Delray Beach Building Department have none of the depth of experience of their predecessors. They are playing everything by the book, from tree removal issues to plant height and species mix to setbacks. The list is quite frankly numerous. To exemplify, a few days ago, Amy Alvarez, the lady who took over our case, told us that the existing, now burned out building on our land could be historic and might have to be incorporated into our plans. This means two things. Firstly, the new incumbent has not read the file either in its entirety or understood it, because she did not see that the fire department had practiced fire drills along with setting fire to it. The building is about as historic as my mother's chicken soup, rest her soul. However, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It seems we are now a shoo-in for the August 24th SPRAB meeting agenda. Of course, and again, with this mob, we all know there are no guarantees. In the meantime, Miss Alvarez says we can now push on for the demolition of the house. Can you see her confusion? Anyway, demolishing the house and preparing the groundwork before receiving the ultimate site approval permit would save weeks on the build time. But I must point out that this is in total contradiction to the previous planner dealing with the demolition process, who told us that we had to wait for site approval first. But now we have been given alternate information. Go figure. I have given this information over to Alan Parrots, our GC at Tester Construction, and he is going to contact the city to see what gives. Alan, by the way, has told us that we can save a lot of time once we get site approval, as a supply chain issue which was really strangling a lot of developers over the previous month has eased considerably. As soon as we get the green light, we will be throwing everything at the development to get it built. From approval, we are targeting 14 months to occupancy. This Friday 5th, we are getting together with the buyers of 410 South East 2nd Street, the corner unit that faces South East 4th Avenue. They want an update, so we arranged an in-person meeting. The buyer for the corner unit, by the way, the other corner unit, has been sent a written update. So far, all seem to be okay to let the process roll. The good news is that the prices of properties have risen because of the situation with the Delray Beach Planning Department, the supply chain issues and the lack of land to build in Delray Beach. So anybody that took the pre-construction price has done exceptionally well. More news to follow over the coming days. Actually, just on a humorous note, because we've got to find some fun in some of this stuff, I could choose to film in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and these mowers and blowers would come and find me and find some leaves to try and blow away into the gutter from about 50 feet from the camera and the mic. Just amazing. Lucky I'm a calm individual. One thing I forgot to mention on the August 1st update was that some vehicle had reversed or gone head-on, for that matter, into our perimeter fence and knocked some of it down. Although not a great expenditure to repair, nevertheless, it is extremely annoying and makes me think that this sort of action should be a hangable offence. So, a flurry of activity this afternoon. A lot has happened in the last 2 days, so much so that I think we'll make this a two-parter today and tomorrow, because there is just too much information to put into one segment here. So, let me do this chronologically. On Tuesday, Adrian Grandison, our lead project architect, received a slew of requests from Amy Alvarez, as if all the previous application submittals had not even happened. The previous dramas we had dealt with looked like they had to be reenacted, with this new employee, Amy, now loosely holding the steering wheel as we round the corners of this treacherous mountain. I promised last month that I was not going to involve you in the minutiae, but there are a few of you out there that revel in the detail, which is indeed where the devil resides. So I will give you the light version of what we were asked for, and those of you that have a retentive memory will be able to cast your mind back to previous episodes where every one of these points was dealt with. However, there was a new element with Amy explaining that the SPRAB committee have been turning down applications where the colour palette of the exterior was a tone of grey. As she put it in her email, we are trying to avoid the greying of Delray. In the words of John McEnroe, you can't be serious. Lucky for everyone, I guess, that our colour palette is blue, but I am scared shitless that SPRAB will say that this is a shade of grey. Who knows with this crowd? I'm not joking. You may recall that we had elongated conversations with the SPRAB committee regarding setbacks, and it was agreed that we could have a 25-foot setback from the property boundary. Well, Amy brought this up again, writing that we were not meeting code. Adrian directed her to our previous correspondence with the city, and she is reviewing. You may also remember that we were told that the balconies cannot encroach up to 3 feet into a required setback. Again, this has already been addressed in previous submittals, and again Adrian pointed this out to Amy. The list goes on, and I'm intentionally not going to bore you with all this. So, anyone out there wanting details of what we are now being asked for, please submit an email or call me and I will be happy to send you to sleep. This and all the other information they want by August the 9th, or we may not make the August 24th deadline. Believe me, everything they've asked for, they're getting. However, some of their requests are really ridiculous or ambiguous. And so Adrian is in the middle of getting clarification from Amy as to what exactly they are after. Centennial Investments and its support team have answered every single comment that this ever-changing SPRAB committee have requested. Surely we have passed the test by now. Tomorrow I will go over a new player in town from the Delray Beach Planning Department and give you news of a chink of light that appeared this afternoon. Michelle Hewitt is a planner at the City of Delray Beach and is aiding and abetting Amy Alvarez in this mayhem. Now, I think it's only fair to point out that if you work for the Delray Beach Planning Department and you're thrown in the middle of this sack of you-know-what, it's hard to imagine how they cope with it. But that being said, if you were on the receiving end of this unrelenting, incompetent, quasi-local government department, it is very wearing, and I have to be aware in these presentations that I'm not representing players like Amy and now Michelle as if they are the devil incarnate. I guess in their own way they are trying to be helpful, but without the experience and depth of knowledge needed, they can only play by the book. Yesterday morning, Adrian received these snapshots from Michelle Hewitt. And as I keep saying, I don't want to go into too much detail as I just want to give you the essence of what we're dealing with. Frustratingly, Michelle was asking for us to confirm, even though we had done so previously, that there are no structures within the 25-foot setback on the elevations facing Southeast 2nd Street and 30-foot setbacks on the third floor balconies facing the same road, which she has shown here in red. So, more work and cost to us, and Adrian once again addresses these issues. Again, we have to explain that these are not fixed structures, but in effect decorative, part of the aesthetic. It is so debilitating to revisit this previously trodden path with new building department personnel. Michelle and the whole cast of characters will review, as their predecessors already have, and will let us know. Late in the day, Alan Parrott sent us an email from David Herbert, a senior building inspector at the City of Delray Beach. He is the planner that signs off the permits for demolition. He stated that if any member from the SPRAB committee lets him know that it's okay to issue a demolition permit, he will happily sign it off. So, to cut a long story short and sideways, Adrian was going to immediately contact Jae-Yoon Kim, the city's landscape planner, who was copied in on the email from David Herbert, to see if any member of the SPRAB committee would be willing, as had been previously stated by Amy, to let us go ahead with the demo, and if so, create the paperwork to make this happen. Before Adrian had a chance to speak to Jae-Yoon Kim, an email landed on Adam Parrott's desk, our general contractor, which read that she had spoken with Amy and would it help our construction schedule if the demolition permit was for building structure only and omitted any removal of the trees or palm plants. At this point, Adrian, myself and Alan got together on a conference call and we agreed that Adrian should contact Jae-Yoon Kim and explain in a friendly way that we had submitted to the city's landscaping department to a complete and total satisfaction. Now, considering this, could she and Amy give David Herbert the necessary paperwork to let us do the complete demolition so that we don't have to do it in two parts, i.e. first the house and then the land? As this would be more costly. Her response to Adrian's email was swiftly measured, almost in microseconds. Jae-Yoon Kim explained that as per the city's LDR, another fine acronym for Land Development Regulations, no can do, for various reasons as laid out here. Here we go, straight out of the playbook, and again strictly by the book. In a nutshell, we need total site approval before we can do the entire demo. My decision as of today is to go for the partial demolition permit. At least we can show the two buyers that something is happening, and although we're crawling along the progress line, something is better than nothing. As I film this segment, more news is coming down the pipeline. I will save this for tomorrow. Yesterday afternoon and today have been very interesting, and I'm sure you may find it amusing as I retell the story of these past 36 hours. So this morning my sales and marketing team, which included Danielle and Matthew, together with Alan Parrott from Tester Construction, our general contractor, and the buyers of 410 South East 2nd Street, who, to remind you, is the corner townhouse that also faces South East 4th Avenue, and the agent of the buyer for 406 South East 2nd Street, the opposite corner. We updated them with the unvarnished facts of where we are with the planning and zoning department at Delray Beach City, and I'm glad to report that all were on board. Jennifer and Stephen, the buyers of 410, said they are 110% committed to this project and there is no better location in Delray Beach, so that's nice to hear. Stupid me, forgot to take pictures of our meeting, but I'm sure there'll be other occasions to do so as we get further into the project. So now on to the fun stuff. As explained yesterday, I decided to demolish just the house structure on the site, so let's get on with it, right? Yeah, right. I shall try and put the sequence of emails into chronological order to make them easier to understand. In reality, I don't expect you to follow all of this perfectly, but at the end, I am sure you'll get the idea of what I'm trying to convey here. There are more people in this email string than the cast of Gone with the Wind. So, David Herbert informed Alan Parrott that David Glover, the landscape site inspector, should give us approval for our demo permit. However, he is absent from the department as he is unwell and has been for some time, but should be back Monday. Alan explains to David Herbert by email that after a conversation with Jae-yoon Kim, we are going for a structure-only demolition, and can we get together with Jae-yoon and Amy Alvarez or any member of the SPRAB team that has agreed to this limited type demolition, and therefore he can release us for a structure-only demo permit. He replies to Alan that he does not need to resolve it with him, but it is strictly a planning and zoning call, so if they approve it, he can approve it. David Herbert adds in another email that this is not a Florida building code issue, hence his involvement is just as a coordinator, and he again reiterates, get one of the planning and zoning people to contact him with the appropriate paperwork. He can then send it on for final processing. Jae-yoon Kim intercedes with an email to Alan advising him to visit the building department and request the removal of the tree and vegetation application paperwork from the original permit application. Then emailed Scott Pape, the development permit manager, a new player in this melodrama, that the permit does not include the tree and vegetation removal. She then went on to email Scott Pape and Chris Buzzen, spelled with a K, yet another player, who is, as I have just looked up on the web, a permit supervisor. Then Alan, our general contractor, stay with me on this, to visit the department and remove the tree and vegetation paperwork from the original application. Alan Parrots then dropped an email to Scott Pape informing him that he spoke to David Herbert and Steve Tobias, yet another player, but known to Alan Parrots. He is the chief building official at the Delray Beach department, or building department, so a higher up. He told Scott all he had to do was put approved in the system and they will release the permit to us immediately. David Glover then interjects with an email asking if the permit has been revised to exclude tree removal. If so, we need a slew of other documentation to facilitate the amended demo permit. Alan explained by email to David Glover that he was informed that all he had to do was pull the tree and vegetation permit application that was submitted with the original permit and resubmit that later. David Glover, sick he may be, but his ability to write emails asking for spurious documentation is not handicapped. Here he asked for a tree disposition plan with a list of all the trees and palms on the property, etc., etc. Sound familiar? David Herbert, by the tone of his email, seems to be getting frustrated with everybody in the building department. Explains a quick lesson that this is not a Florida building code issue, so quit potzing around and let Alan come into the department and remove the paperwork from the file that is not needed. Return the folder to him and let's get on with life. Suddenly the light goes on for a new player called Denise Baker, who is, according to her signature, a senior permit technician, development services, building division. She reiterates what David Herbert just wrote, tells everyone the procedure and succinctly puts everything in simple instructions that hopefully these Jobsworth bureaucrats understand. Alan fires off an email to planning and zoning asking if he can come by the department tomorrow, which was today, to remove the tree and vegetation plans from the folder so we can proceed with the structure-only demolition application that will be approved, as we have just been told. As of my meeting today with Alan and the buyers, he has not had a reply. The last email that I saw this afternoon was from Alan asking, once again, all the cast of characters at Planning and Zoning, if there was a good time on Monday, which is August the 8th, to come and meet anybody to pull out the tree and vegetation application that application is not needed anymore for the structure-only permit application. Anyway, more next week. I'm off for a nice glass of wine. By way of an interlude, I wanted to give you all an update on a townhomes building development that I showed you way back in January of this year, that our general contractor, Tester Construction, is constructing. This development is in Delray Beach near the Intracoastal, and Testa is constructing 10 units in 2 phases, 5 units per phase. All the units are 3 stories of 3 beds and 4 baths and all have elevators. The first phase will be finished by March 2023 and the second phase by end August in the same year. The total development under area is 42,000 square feet, so roughly 4,200 square feet per unit, with a price range not too dissimilar to ours at around 3.2 million to 3.3 million per unit, which is around $800 a square foot as opposed to our square foot price of $1,000. I visited this site last week and was very impressed with the organisation and build quality, and I must say I'm looking forward to our development getting underway and rising up into the sky, as they say. Well, today we got approval for the structure-only demolition. Not only that, we applied for a quick start and that was also granted as well. However, the demo company that we are using, Frederico, cannot start until the first week of September, which is an issue or a potential issue, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But let me explain to you how this structure-only demo permit became another bureaucratic fiasco that we managed to overcome, to the credit of Alan Parrots and Peter Cole, our landscape architect. I must, however, shout out to David Herbert, the city's leading building inspector, who has advocated on our behalf these last few days. As we left off last Friday, August the 6th, Alan Parrots, our general contractor, was going to the city on Monday to pull out the demo plans for the tree, shrubs and all the other vegetation on the site so that we could proceed with a structure-only demolition. However, David Glover, the landscape reviewer and site inspector at Development Services in the Planning and Zoning Division, insisted that we have a tree disposition survey on plan showing all the trees and plants remaining after the structure's demo. I immediately called Peter Cole, our landscape architect, who was on vacation, luckily only until the 8th, 2 days ago. I left an SOS message for him to contact me when he returned to his office. On Tuesday the 9th of August, Peter Cole returned and together with Alan Parrots we discussed the current situation. Peter very kindly made time to quickly put together a survey of all the trees that are to remain on the site after demolition. These plans were made ready yesterday, which was Wednesday, the 10th of August, and Alan Parrots dropped them off immediately at the city. Happily for us, David Glover, the landscape reviewer and site inspector, approved the plans. David Herbert, the building inspector, signed off on the permit and put them into the system, the city system, yesterday. Therefore, it's official. However, and there is always a however, Adrian Grandison, our project lead architect, received an email this morning from Michelle Hyland, who is the principal planner of historic preservation in the City of Delray Beach. She wrote, and I paraphrase, that picking up on an email from Amy Vasquez, the lady that took over from Miss Raquel Falcone, she suggested that possibly the structure that we were about to demolish could be historical, and that she'd done some research and found out that this shitty, newly burned out house was built in 1941. And although the structure is not currently listed as an historical building or within a historic district, there is a potential for it to be saved. What are the owner's thoughts on this? I called Alan Parrots, our general contractor, and asked him to beg Frederico to bring the demolition forward. Have you ever had the nightmare where you're drowning, you're underwater, you get back up to the surface, take a gasp of air, and then suddenly you're under the water again? This event happens multiple times. Although a terrible analogy, it feels like dealing with planning and zoning at Delray Beach Planning Department. Late on Friday just gone, which was August the 13th, Adrian Grandison, our project lead architect, Received an email from Michelle Hewitt, who, may I remind you, is a planner at the City of Delray Beach Development Services Department. She seems to be tag teaming with Amy Alvarez to give us the most or the utmost grief possible. In her email, she asked if the architects could indicate where they got the code that was applied to our plans, or if there was a discussion with the planner. And if so, do we have that planner's name or an exchange of emails about the proposed 15-foot rear setback that we applied to our plans? Adrian quickly replied with the section of calculus used from the city's best standards development matrix. Please bear in mind that this question was addressed way back at the end of 2021. And then again, this new broom that's not sweeping clean does not know this and is restarting a process that was put to bed 2 plan reviews ago. In the email, Michelle Hewitt sent us over a section of the plans together with the city's setback table and basically said, this is the code. If you've got a variance, who did you talk to? Otherwise, these are the setback measurements that you need to adhere to. Shane Ames, the principal of Ames International Architecture, who initially drew up these plans with his team, was away in Europe on vacation until this morning. And Adrian sent an email to Michelle Hewitt explaining that on his return he will contact her to explain who he talked to concerning these rear setbacks, etc. So Shane talked to Michelle Hewitt late morning today and explained who he spoke to, and I believe sent some supporting emails. Michelle Hewitt said she would go back to her team and get some clarification. This afternoon, this email arrived. Now questioning the setbacks for the rear side interior adjacent to the residential properties and the front setbacks along the Southeast 2nd Street or along Southeast 2nd Street. Not only this, but there were questions about the labelling on the site plans concerning these setbacks. As I've said several times in this and previous CITV presentations, I will no longer go into vast detail about these setbacks or in fact any other technicalities and what they mean. But can you just imagine? I've just spoken to Shane, who, when I first mentioned to him that we had just got the email which he had not seen yet, that he'd already sorted out the problem, he told me, not realising this was a fresh batch. I've left him to go away, read the email in detail to formulate answers and dig through hundreds of emails to prove that the setbacks he used were given with the then planner's blessings. This is not the first time that I thought about sending a complete nuclear email telling the Delray Building Department exactly what I feel about them, collectively and individually, addressing their incompetence, which is married to their ignorance, and general laissez-faire demeanour, which is abhorrent to personal experience and even worse to live through. Of course, I counselled myself not to do this, but we need to be on the August 24th SPRAB meeting agenda. It seems that these bureaucratic just don't give a toss. I shall report back tomorrow on the outcome. Okay guys, I was going to record a segment for you yesterday to bring you up to date, but things got really complicated really quickly. So I thought that I would hold off and do a roundup today rather than immerse you in the same old, which you've been watching for the the past 40 minutes or so. Stop press. The structure on the land at 408 Southeast 2nd Street is soon to be the former structure on the land at 408 Southeast 2nd Street. And as you can see here, it is being demolished as I speak. Federico, the owner of the demolition company that bears his name, managed to bring us forward with the demo, and I can only say 1,000 thanks for that. But the big news is that we are on the next SPRAB meeting agenda this coming Wednesday, August 24th, at the City Chambers in Delray Beach, just up the road here. This, interestingly, is an in-person public meeting, so I will get a chance to finally meet all the cast and crew that have been keeping me up and giving me sleepless nights for the past 6 months, really. We did not get this meeting without a fight, and I must pay my respects and gratitude to both Shane Ames and Adrian Grandison of Ames International Architecture, who collectively spent a solid day dealing with the multitude of questions, most of which they had answered over the preceding year. Without putting up in detail all the email exchanges on screen between Shane, Adrian and Michelle Hewitt and Amy Alvarez of the Planning and Zoning Department at the City of Delray Beach, not to mention the numerous phone calls, without their dedication to getting this awful job done, we would have been in a very frustrating state indeed. When you look at the agenda, we are the last item. It must have been touch and go. So Shane and Adrian, thank you. I personally think that you made the difference. I can't help myself. I had to flash up some of the madness on the screen. Shane had to go through nearly 1,000 emails to retrace all his previous correspondence with current and past members of the SPRAB committee to prove out that the discrepancies that were perceived by Michelle Hewitt, a planner helping Amy Alvarez, as you know, were granted variances by the various planning and zoning personnel prior to Michelle Hewitt and Amy Alvarez joining the circus. For the record, it seems that in the last 12 hours, Michelle Hewitt and Amy Alvarez put a lot of effort into getting us into this SPRAB meeting. So credit where credit is due. And as you can see by the only email I'm going to throw on the screen right now, in this segment, Shane was very appreciative. On Wednesday, August the 24th, we shall be all getting out our prayer mats as we go down to the chambers at 5 p.m. for what is a public meeting. And I hope that we exit in a happy refrain because we truly deserve it. I will absolutely, of course, report the outcome to you in the next segment. Here we are on our way to our fate. I hope it's a good one.
If you could just state your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Shane Ames, architect, Ames International Architecture of 203 Dixie Boulevard, Delray Beach. We started on this project on this great street
The
corner.
location is Southeast 2nd Street. It also borders on an alley to the east. There are a few requirements that have not been met. There are 2 swimming pools that are in the front setback areas, and that's along Southeast 4th Avenue. And
So then what happened?
it's big design problems.
Apologize to interrupt as well, but so if those are all considered fronts, the pools are in the front setback, which they cannot be?
Correct.
And is that a waiver that's part of this application?
No, it's noted as a technical note that it needs to be removed.
And so is the applicant agreeing to remove the pools at tonight's hearing?
They don't comply with the code, they have to be removed.
Is-
We can't approve this then without the applicant's acceptance of that.
When I initially came in and got all of our setbacks from one of the staff members, we wrote it down, and this was there was one front, 2 side streets, and a rear. So that's how we designed the entire building around. And in that scenario, the swimming pools are allowed to be 10 feet off exactly where they are.
The problem that we have is that we can't approve it as is without a variance, which we can't grant from our board, so.
I think the problem exasperates itself because even if the board were to approve this, if it didn't have the authority to, in theory, these developers could get halfway through the project being built and then have their permit revoked because you weren't authorized to allow them to build the project. That's really my concern. I understood and heard the applicant say earlier that they feel like there's been some delays due to turnover, et cetera, but I would rather do this right and take another month to do it right than to let them leave today thinking they have an approved project and begin the permit process only to have that rescinded. Quite frankly, if I'm the applicant, there's no guarantee that you'll get the variance for the pools. So if your project is dependent upon providing these amenities, to remove them thinking that you'll get a variance that may not actually be granted, I think is additionally problematic.
So as far as the other item with the balconies, balconies cannot extend more than 3 feet into a setback.
Went through all my notes, and I provided to the city copies of the initial meeting notes and sketches that I brought into the city to get my setbacks, where we got the side setbacks, street side setbacks, rear and front, and define for the building envelope. So in those scenarios, everything that we've got on the plans is to code, including the swimming pools and locations. There was issues with the balconies, being them boxed out, and I brought in and got a letter from the city stating that that was okay to enclose the balconies down. None of the balconies stick out past, that was an erroneous dotted line or something. It was something from above on the plan that they interpreted incorrectly as to be 5 feet. They are only 3 feet out completely. We were allowed to do the boxing around them, and the details around all the corners is architectural, because they're non-structural, complete details. So our real contention apparently is the initial findings that the city gave me for designing and what they designated as the setbacks. Now, our setbacks for the rear have been adjusted to, comment came up late in the game after everything was turned in on second or third rounds of things coming back as to what they determine the side setbacks are going to be and how they're going to interpret them with the swimming pools.
You know, when I took this over and we were looking at it, the planner that's been working with me on this, you know, we had thought that those were two side streets, and we were told, no, those are fronts.
So who made
there
that
was some
determination?
other-
And I don't think we can vote to approve the project as is, because that would be to grant you the authority to move forward. I don't think you're comfortable, you don't want to remove the pools, I presume.
No.
I think we can look at the classification, or as far as Southeast 2nd Street being the front, and if we could consider the alley and Southeast 4th Avenue as side streets.
Yes, I would probably just do a motion to postpone, and there's no, at least for the application that's pending before the board today, there's no additional notice requirement. So if the internal process reveals the need for additional notice, we're postponing to a date certain. Today's not going to do it.
I think a larger issue that maybe should go to the commission is, you know, we have a lot of these regulations that are in place. And it's, you know, I feel like a petulant 2-year-old. I keep going like, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? You know, why is it 25 feet? Why is it 5 feet, not 3 feet? You know, we've got all these Juliet balconies that I'm like, I couldn't drink coffee on that balcony. It's like, you know,
Too small.
I could, you know, maybe do a play, a Shakespearean play,
Right.
you know, but that's, yeah, exactly. That's,
Door has to swing in because it can't swing out.
yeah. So as I'm hearing all this stuff, I'm like, well, why? Why can't you have a pool in the front? Like, I mean, the bottom line is it's a great project.
I think
And
so
it
too.
fits in that area. You know,
think so, too.
it fits in with the stuff that's on Federal Highway.
All we're saying is we're going to postpone for tonight, and then just as a general point of view, we like the blue. And I'm sorry, because I think it is a nice project. I think you've worked hard to do what you thought you were doing within the constraints that the city provided you, and I think there was some miscommunication about what was needed here, and, you know, I think you need to have a conversation with the city, and I think the city probably needs to step back and take a look again. Are we applying all the standards appropriately? And there are a lot of different details to the code there's overlapping interpretations of what the code covers.
Wanting to get on the agenda, and so we were trying to help that along.
And I know this, you know, the turnover hasn't helped, and that's certainly not any fault of any of yours.
Okay, not the outcome that we really expected. It's been postponed. I'll try and see if I can get some of the the video that they record inside the chamber, so you can see. Very disappointed, very down at the moment, but nevertheless we only need to get a variance on the balcony setback and the swimming pool setbacks, which Shane Ames and Adrian Grandison are going to try and get next week, and maybe we'll be on the next month's SPRAB meeting agenda here, and we get approval. It's going to go through, it's going to be okay, just a bit of a shitty night really. So I wanted to wait a full 24 hours while I reflected on what happened yesterday. Fundamentally, Amy Alvarez threw us under the bus. The background scrolling behind me is our presentation to the SPRAB committee, and as you heard, the committee to a person all loved the concept and design of our 3 townhomes and would have quickly passed it had it not been for the 2 technical issues that Miss Alvarez sprung on us at the last moment. Although the setback issue of the swimming pools and the balconies were in the planning and zoning document prior to the SPRAB meeting, we did not anticipate that Miss Alvarez would make such a problem with it that gave the SPRAB committee no alternative other than to postpone our application. The alternative would have been a denial of our application, which would have led us down an entirely different path that would have taken a long time to navigate with the resetting of the SPRAB process. Just as a point of fact, had Miss Alvarez's predecessor, Rachel Falcone, carried on with our project, we would not only have got site plan approval, but would have achieved this in July. How unfair a situation is it that lots of planners leave over the past 6 months, retire or are fired even, and we are sat holding the baby? But that all said, I am very grateful to the gentleman that sat on the end of the panel, I don't know his name for the moment, who was dispensing code doctorate for both applicants and staff members, basically building department personnel, for his advice on how to proceed after we found out that Miss Alvarez was going to be so intransigent over the setback. So let me comment on the setback issue, which of course myself, Shane and Adrian and the rest of our team have talked about incessantly since last night. Regarding the balconies, this was not a problem and should not have been even mentioned at the SPRAB meeting. The Planning and Zoning Department had previously received a set of plans where the setbacks for the balconies were not in compliance. Or so it seemed. Although it was a labelling issue, I think a solid line was drawn instead of a dashed. In fact, I did show you this in a previous CITV episode. So Miss Alvarez referred to an old set of plans, whereas the updated plan showed the balconies drawn strictly in compliance with the code. But the emphasis of Miss Alvarez's presentation to the SPRAB committee was on the swimming pool setbacks, which meant that on the night this got overlooked, but would have been brought into play and dispensed with there and then. But Miss Alvarez had put up on the screen at the SPRAB meeting the balcony issue, so this compounded the swimming pool problem, which polarised the SPRAB committee's attention. The swimming pool setbacks are a separate issue entirely. Shane Ames is absolutely convinced that Amy Alvarez's interpretation of the code is incorrect. But it was not for us to debate this issue at last night's SPRAB meeting. As I film this CITV segment, Shane and Adrian are going over the land development regulations, basically building code, to prove that the setbacks agreed with previous planners at planning and zoning should stand. Our immediate strategy right now will be to appeal to the city clerk for a variance on the swimming pool setbacks, or plead the case that there is not an issue here at all. This appeal has to be submitted 10 days from the date of the SPRAB meeting. Now, although we were not denied the site approval, it was a postponement, but the process and the protocol have to take the form of an appeal. We are fighting to get the appeal process started and adjudicated so we can be at the next SPRAB meeting, which is something we will bust our gut to achieve. But we are genuinely hopeful that Shane can prove to Miss Alvarez that her interpretation and application of the code is wrong. If she concedes, unlikely, that we could resolve this technical issue without needing an appeal hearing. Look, I won't deny that this whole setback situation is not a nothing burger. However, it is not a major problem. but it is still costing us time. We are embroiled in this final act of bureaucracy, and we just have to suck it up and deal with it and play the game as quickly as we possibly can. I will bring you an update within the next week. Just a quick update after the weekend. I thought I would have more comprehensive news for you as Shane Ames and Adrian Grandison of Ames International Architecture, our architects, were going down to the city today to meet with Michael Vinci, who was the original zoning planner at Planning and Zoning at Delray Beach Building Department, who gave Shane the initial setback criteria which was used in the site plans that Amy Alvarez has since disputed. However, Michael Vinci was not in the city today, so the meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow morning. So I'll give you an update on the wrap-up segment, which I'll be filming tomorrow. As mentioned before, we're going to fight this situation on two fronts. One is that Shane and Adrian will meet with the planner, Michael Vinci, and then they'll move on to try and convince Amy Alvarez to accept the original determination of the setbacks from all those months ago. But at the same time, just in case Miss Alvarez will not budge on her position, we are going to apply for a docket to appear in front of the city's Rules and Appeals Variance Board, which sits every 2 weeks. Of course, timing is of the essence here because we want to make the next SPRAB meeting at the end of September. So we're trying to pull all the frayed ends together to make this happen. We shall all be sitting on the edge of our seats hoping the timings work in our favour. But more in the wrap-up tomorrow. These CITV wrap-up segments, which I now do every 2 months, come around frighteningly fast. I was kind of hoping that this particular wrap-up segment would be one of our most joyous to date, but for many reasons well documented in this episode, that is plainly not going to happen. So to tidy up the past few days, Shane and Adrian have been trying to secure an appointment with Michael Vinci, who, as I explained yesterday, was the planner from Delray Beach Planning and Zoning Department that gave Shane Ames, our architect, the accepted criteria that Shane could use to draw up the plans for the 3 townhomes that Amy Alvarez has since judged to be incorrect. Well, it seems that Mr. Vinci has gone MIA. However, Adrian told me on our phone call today that they have an appointment with Miss Amy Alvarez tomorrow, Wednesday, 31st of August at 3 p.m. at the city. However, this meeting will go beyond the cut-off point for finalising the production of this episode. So I will let you know the outcome of Adrian and Shane's meeting with Miss Alvarez by text straight after this wrap-up segment. As of tomorrow, I guess, that's as near as a current update as I can give you. But as it stands, Amy Alvarez told Adrian Grandison by email today that Planning and Zoning had been discussing our swimming pool setbacks internally, so it's not like they ignored our problem. At the moment, a redesign is out of the question, and so I'm hoping that some form of compromise can be reached, or that Amy capitulates with her team on the setback footage. I don't have much more to offer than what you have seen and heard in this episode, and it's pointless repeating my constant mantra from this and previous episodes of CITV. All I can say is that the outcome of this project will be favourable, and the predicted margins are holding firm. I want to be bold and say that we deserve a good reward for all our effort, patience and risk when building out new projects. And although I can be a little downbeat at times, my overall optimism and enthusiasm for this project has not waned. I just occasionally get frustrated with people, generally. Listen, we have 2 buyers firmly locked into this project, one circling, and the so-called historic building on our site has been demolished and the site is ready to be worked on. I will send out a quick interim video if there are any important updates between now and the end of October, our next episode of CITV. Until then, keep well, and I look forward to seeing or hearing from you soon.